welcome back to the Prop Talk Podcast, a voter companion show brought to you by House of Nouns. We're here to make your voting decision easier by giving you objective and succinct explanations to every proposal before voting ever closes. We'll also contextualize the conversations happening around the proposals so you don't have to dig through discourse and Twitter to go vote with confidence. This show is created by the same people who brought you House of Nouns, a supercharged governance platform for on-chain voting and discussion. You can have your voice heard too at houseofnouns.xyz, or join us for our Twitter Spaces, hosted by the Nouns Squared, every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Let's get into the proposals. Proposal number 170, Nouns Name Service Expansion, proposed by Toady Hawk. The TLDR, Nouns Name Service was originally funded with 2 ETH by Prop House to create the .noggles domains. The next level of the NNS strategy laid out in this proposal includes integrating .nouns names, expanding the NNS to new DAOs, creating a DAO through Nouns Builder for NNS supporters, and creating a Nounish Club, which will reward 0 through 9,999 .noggle names to people taking active part in proliferation. The budget. Nouns Name Service requests 195 ETH to execute this expansion phase, which will be immediately converted to USDC when received. The first 97.5 ETH will be unlocked up front to cover the first 3 months. After those 3 months, the multi-signers will check if the goals of the first 3 months had been achieved. If the checklist had been completed, the second half of the funds will be released. It's worth noting that some of the funds seem to retrofund .nouns 4 months of work on NNS, which the previous 2 ETH didn't cover. However, there is no clear plan on how these funds plan to be distributed. So who's behind this proposal? Well, the multi-signers are Dom, or the .nouns, who created the NNS after winning Prop House round for 2 ETH. He spent months continuing the mission of the Nouns Naming Service and is now asking for additional support to build NNS into a true standalone naming service with its own DAO. There are 2 other multi-signers though, Toady Hawk and Ben Body. Toady sponsored the proposal with 23 nouns and will check milestones. Ben Body will also check milestones and represents 2 nouns. Toady and Ben Body are both active, trusted members of the Nouns DAO. The main goal of this proposal is proliferation, with more name visibility and engagement for nouns and nouns names, especially focusing on a Web3 demographic. In the case of similar proposals, well, there's been plenty there to proliferate both the noggles and nouns culture. Proposal number 109, Nouns Brand. A clothing brand was funded with 355 ETH 4 months ago. Proposal number 84, Nouns Coffee, was funded with 105.5 ETH. Proposal number 97, Moonbeans. Nouns Baked Beans was funded with 135.69 ETH. There are many more, similar to these, that proliferate the brand. What these proposals don't have compared to NNS is a community that rewards Nouners and Nounish communities, and a DAO that can help steer its direction. As for community sentiment, there has been a lot of discussion around this proposal so far. OX Hindsight posted with their vote. I like what has been done so far, but it's too big of an ask too soon with too vague of a roadmap for what is essentially a task of proliferation, and I'm not quite clear on the deliverables. L4D wrote with their against vote, I'd love to fund further proliferation of NNS and to retro reward the work done so far. However, the proposal's budget allocation is too vague for me to assess the funds will be well spent. In the Nounsel Discord, Maddie writes, NNS is fun. I like seeing it in the auctions, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's still just a gimmick. I think it's highly unlikely that it competes with ENS or is integrated with major sites outside of the Nounish bubble. Toady Hawk, who sponsored the proposal and wrote with his yes vote, Nouns will never have a token like Ape, and I don't think it ever needs one. But absent that, I think the .noggles is a really cool and low-friction way to unite communities all over the Nouniverse. .nouns has responded to questions in the Nounsel Discord, including clearing up some issues about the 15 to 30 ETH that will seed their Nouns Builder DAO. .nouns also said, What we are really doing here is using the dot noggles to gradually create networks and features that would allow other projects and communities to do the same thing we're doing at the moment with Nouns. If you'd like to hear more about this proposal by .nouns, then join us at our Twitter Spaces at 4 p.m. Eastern, hosted by the Nouns Squared. Every week, we will host a Twitter Space where you can come and ask the questions so you understand the proposals even better. Proposal number 171, DCS, or Do Cool Shit, Pod. This was proposed by beautyandthepunk.eth. The TLDR. This proposal establishes a 5-person Do Cool Shit Pod, or the DCS Pod, and it will focus on bridging the current gap between off-chain funding options that are usually under 10 ETH and larger on-chain props, which are usually over 20 ETH. The goal is to help Nouns DAO builders scale up within the ecosystem. They will focus primarily on software, arts, and IRL activations, with a funding range between 8 and 25 ETH. The initial budget for this proposal is 126 ETH, 51 ETH for administration fees for 5 core members. The members will each receive 3 ETH per month, and the secretary will receive an additional 2 ETH per month. 75 ETH will be used to fund proposals between 3 to 9 projects, depending on the cost of the proposals. At the end of the 3 months, if not enough good proposals were found and funded, the funds will be returned to the Treasury, and if successful, they will ask for a continuation with a new proposal. As for who's behind the proposal, the original discourse post is by Beauty and the Punk, who represents 2 nouns. The rest of the pod is composed of 4 members: Oni, who represents 3 nouns, EOJ, who represents 2 nouns, Sam Ellis, or the pencil.eth, who represents 1 noun, and Juan, who represents 1 noun. Get it? 1 noun. These pod members will be required to attend weekly meetings, give feedback on possible props, collaborate with proposers, and help evaluate the quality of the props that get funded. This team would rotate every 3 to 6 months. And keep in mind that these are the members that will also be deciding who will receive the funding through the DCS pod proposals. As for similar proposals, well, several pods have received funding through Nouns. However, the most similar proposal is not a pod, it's Shark Labs, a Nouns proposal incubator created by Shark DAO, a fork of the Nouns DAO. Their proposal asked for 99 ETH and promised several shipped Nounish projects, as well as an incubator with Shark DAO for Nounish creatives. This proposal failed 26,499 against. The first pod funded was Marketplace Pod, funded with 50 ETH in a 65-0 vote to create a free marketplace for the Nouns ecosystem. Nouns Tech Grants was funded with 162 ETH in a 41-0 vote to support Nouns Tech developments for 4 months, including paying engineers from the Verbs team. Nouns on the Ground, a pod dedicated to proliferation at IRL events, was funded with 92 ETH in a 138-0 vote. The Nouns Esport Pod was funded with 35 ETH to start, then funded for expansion with 22 ETH, 129 ETH, and most recently 369 ETH in a 158-1 vote 3 months ago. The Nouns AI Pod was recently funded to research and develop AI tools for Nouns with 164 ETH in a 181-0 vote. As for community sentiment, the current vote in the Nouncil for this proposal is 43 for and 3 against, signaling support among dedicated Nouners. Joel Cares said in the Nouncil Discord, "There is a valid need for Nouns programs to provide funding in this range, and the team is a solid group of Nounish folk. My only concern is that the admin costs are 40% of the ask. I support this prop, but hope that in the future iterations, as the group scales, they can improve on the ratio of admin costs to allocated ETH." Beauty and the Punk has responded to the admin cost by saying the workload is yet to be determined, but as we know, it can be a lot of work. Another reason why we shorten the trial: if there is less work than expected, we reduce compensation. Don said in the Nouns Discord, "I love this idea, as it's an existing gray area that I've encountered myself at Nounfrica, where we have a prop but no definite place to apply for funding." Czar said in the Nouns Discord, "A tremendous amount of admin time is a simple reality. All team members have delivered above and beyond consistently." In the initial discourse posts from October, there was mostly support for this pod. On discourse, Seneca showed support for the budget, but posed a crucial piece of feedback. It's worth considering grant pods by distribution or expertise, or even a mix of the two, such as Nouns Brazil, Nouns Music, etc. The goal being to have the people closest to the builders, who have the most context and are best suited to make domain-specific decisions, be the ones funding them, as opposed to having a DAO-wide grant bucket for specific ranges. Voting for this proposal is live right now, but will end Tuesday at midnight Eastern. Proposal number 172. Fund Trustless USDC Payments Contract. Proposed by an address ending in 260F, which received 2 nouns from the Nounders. The TLDR. Many proposals have costs in USD and would prefer to be paid in USDC instead of ETH. In order to pay proposers directly in USDC, this proposal has deployed a contract called Token Buyer, which swaps ETH for USDC on behalf of Nouns DAO. This will allow any proposal to ask to be paid in USDC rather than ETH in the UI when submitting the proposal. The budget for this proposal. Well, the contract would initially be funded with 625 ETH, which is the ask for the proposal, but these funds would still be deployed by Nouns DAO, held by the tech pod, and deployed into the token buyer contract to be swapped into USDC. But who's the tech pod? Well, they developed the token buyer smart contracts, which allows for permissionless swapping of tokens. The tech pod was established in Proposal 54 and funded with 162 ETH. As for similar proposals, well, there's been many updates to the Nouns DAO tech from the Verbs and TechPod team. In general, these tech improvements are passed without hesitation from voters. As of recording this podcast, there's been very little discussion as the proposal has just gone on chain. But if you'd like to talk about it more in a live setting, join our spaces this Thursday, hosted by the Nouns Squared at 4 p.m. Eastern. And now for the proposals of last week. Proposal number 168, the Nouns x Mr. Beast. This failed 7-4-127 against. Even though people appreciated the big idea, it seemed that no one really supported this iteration of the proposal. If you'd like to hear more about how people felt, go check out the Twitter Spaces hosted by the Nouns Square last Thursday, linked in the description below. We also had proposal number 169, the Nouns DAO v2.1 minor fix. This is a tech upgrade that, at the time of this recording, will pass at 134 and 0 against. It's time for the Prop House in review. Nouns Go Viral voting ended, with 5 creators each winning 4 Ethereum. The winners were as follows. Number 1, with 87 votes, was hashtag Nouns Give Back, the TikTok public good campaign sponsored by the Nouns Squared. Number 2, with 73 votes, the Society of Nounish Cartoonists, a series of comic strips by thepencil.eth. Number 3, Proliferating Nouns, 5+ million views, crossed in a single month with multi-platform stickers and gifts across TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, 64 votes. Number 4, Roadmap, a Nounish hitchhiking journey ready to launch on YouTube by OX Dariush with 44 votes. And number 5, International Nouns, making nouns go viral worldwide. This had 34 votes. The next was 30 votes, moving on down. Build on Composable's Prop House round has closed to submissions and moved on to voting. Composables is an open source framework for anyone to create new art, traits, collections, or games with nouns. 5 winners will receive 5 ETH. There's also a new round, open for anyone with an Ethereum address to submit their idea. 5 winners will each be awarded with 1 ETH, and they must be submitted by November 23rd. That's it for Prop Talk, your weekly podcast, where we break down every proposal so you have an easier time voting. But if you'd like to get more involved, please join us in our space later today, hosted by the Noun Squared. We'd love to talk to you and hear what you're thinking about each one of these proposals. Until next time, stay nounish.